Welcome back to Lore of the Multiverse, where the extraordinary becomes reality. Here, we dive into the most gripping true stories from around the world, the ones that leave you questioning the limits of human survival. If you're fascinated by the wild, the weird, and the unbelievable, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss a tale. Now, prepare yourself for a survival story unlike any other. It was early November in the frozen town of Arviat, Nunavut, nestled against the southern coast of the Hudson Bay, one of the most remote and coldest places in Canada. Here, winter sets in like a slow-moving storm, swallowing the land in darkness and snow for months on end. The sun barely rises, and when it does, it hangs low and pale, casting long shadows over the icy terrain. In this land of extremes, nature is a constant companion, sometimes a friend, sometimes a foe. Kootoo Shaw, just 26 years old, was no stranger to the Arctic. He had grown up in it, played on the frozen shorelines, hunted with elders, walked through snowstorms that would paralyze most outsiders. He was strong, self-reliant, and like most in his community, lived in harmony with the natural world. But even the most seasoned locals cannot prepare for what happened that morning. It was still dark out. Around 5 a.m., Kootoo left a family gathering and was walking to his girlfriend's house just a few blocks away. In the Arctic winter, 5 a.m. might as well be midnight, silent, empty, and unforgiving. The air was bitter cold, at least 20 degrees Celsius. Ice crystals floated like smoke in the air with every breath. Then he saw it, a hulking white shape in the road ahead. At first, he thought it was a dog. That's a common mistake in northern communities. Large huskies and malamutes roam freely, their thick fur glowing pale in the dark. But this animal didn't move like a dog. It moved slower, heavier, purposeful. A creeping realization began to settle in Kootoo's mind. It was a polar bear. In that split second, time slowed. The bear stood on all fours, massive and silent. Kootoo knew better than to run. Sudden movements trigger predatory instincts. He slowly turned, keeping his body low, trying not to panic. But it was too late. The bear charged. Kootoo barely had time to scream before the beast was on him. The impact was like being hit by a small car. The force knocked him to the ground. He tried to shield his head, but the bear was relentless. A paw the size of a dinner plate slammed into his skull, fracturing it instantly. Blood pooled in the snow. Then came the bite. The bear clamped its jaws around Kootoo's head and began to shake. The pain was unimaginable, searing, electric, primal. Kootoo screamed again, this time in a way that cut through the silent town. He could feel his skin tearing, hear the crunch of his own bones. He thought he was dying. But he wasn't alone. Just a few houses away, his uncle had stepped outside for a cigarette. He heard the scream, not an animal, not a fight, but a human scream of sheer terror. He ran toward the noise, shovel in hand, heart racing. What he saw nearly stopped him in his tracks. His nephew, covered in blood, was being mauled by one of the most powerful predators on the planet. The bear was on top of him, tearing at his body. But there was no time to hesitate. The uncle screamed, charged the bear, swinging the shovel with all his might. The bear turned, startled by the sudden attack. A rock hit its shoulder. A shovel cracked against its flank. The creature growled, backing off. Finally, with a snort of frustration, it lumbered away into the darkness, leaving behind a trail of blood, broken ice, and a barely conscious Kootoo Shaw. What happened next was a blur of chaos and urgency. Neighbors came running. Someone called for help. Kootoo was rushed to the local clinic, where the nurses could hardly believe he was still breathing. He was covered in deep lacerations, his skull cracked open, ear nearly torn off, arms shredded from trying to shield himself. And yet, he was awake. He spoke through the pain. "I thought I was dead," he whispered. "I could feel my head cracking. I thought I was going to die." He was flown by medevac to a hospital in Winnipeg, where surgeons worked for hours to save his life. They had to reconstruct parts of his skull, repair nerve damage, and stop internal bleeding. The fact that he survived, and stayed conscious through most of the attack, stunned even the doctors. Meanwhile, back in Arviat, the community was shaken. Polar bear sightings were becoming more frequent. The sea ice was retreating earlier in the year, pushing hungry bears further inland. Food was scarce. Their natural hunting grounds were melting away, and they were getting desperate. Kootoo's attack was not an isolated incident, it was a warning. People began sharing stories. Bears seen near schools, rummaging through garbage, wandering into town in the dead of night. Patrols were organized. Elders spoke to youth about how to spot signs, how to act. But the truth was clear, something had changed. Kootoo's story spread quickly. News outlets picked it up. Photos of his bloodied face, bandaged and swollen, circulated online. Interviews followed. But what struck people most wasn't the brutality of the attack, it was Kootoo's attitude. He didn't curse the bear. He didn't call for it to be hunted down. Instead, he said, "It was just trying to survive, same as me." That kind of grace is rare. It reminded everyone that up there, in the Arctic, nature isn't just something you visit. It's something you live with, and sometimes survive. Kootoo had no illusions about what had happened. He nearly died. But he also understood the world he lived in. A world where humans aren't always at the top of the food chain. As he recovered, Kootoo became a voice in the community. He spoke at schools, told his story to kids so they'd understand the risks. He talked to hunters, to officials, to wildlife workers. He pushed for better patrols, more awareness, and a deeper respect for the bears, not fear, not hatred, but understanding. He wore his scars with pride. Not because he wanted attention, but because each one told a story. A story of survival, of family, of instincts, of the raw line between life and death. Today, years later, Kootoo still lives in Arviat. The winters haven't gotten any easier. The polar bears still come. But so does the strength of a community, a place where people don't just survive the cold, they survive the wild. And Kootoo Shaw, the man who faced a polar bear and lived, is proof of that. If you found this story as wild and powerful as we did, let us know in the comments below. Would you have had the courage to face down a polar bear and come out alive? Smash that like button if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe to Lore of the Multiverse for more unbelievable survival stories and chilling true tales from the edge of reality. Until next time, stay curious, stay strong, and stay wild.